Why Argentinians have no economic future. In the first half of 2025, Argentina crossed a line no one thought possible. Poverty climbed to 52.9%, trapping nearly 25 million people in a struggle to survive. Extreme poverty soared to 18.1%, meaning more than 8.5 million Argentines could not afford enough food. 2/3 of children under 15 were declared poor. Just 6 months into President Javier Milei's government, more than half the nation found itself pushed below the poverty line. These are not just numbers, they are lives. Millions of families forced into crisis in one of the richest countries in Latin America. On paper, Argentina should be thriving. This is the 3rd largest economy in the region. It has oil, gas, lithium, fertile farmland, and bustling cities. But for decades, Argentina has been stuck in a cycle of crashes, debt, and broken promises. The latest chapter of this story is darker than ever, and for millions of Argentinians, the dream of a stable economic future seems impossible. The housing and rental crisis. To understand the crisis, start with where people live. 91% of Argentinians live in cities, but 1 out of 3 live in a slum. That means millions of families are squeezed into tiny homes without steady water, without safe electricity, and without secure streets. Overcrowding has turned into a housing emergency. More than 10 million people, about 3.5 million households, face housing problems. In a normal country, the government steps in, but Milei's administration, famous for wielding the chainsaw against public spending, shut down the Secretaría de Habitat, the Housing Secretariat, through Decree 70-25. This office once built social housing, subsidized programs, and gave poor families a chance to have a roof. Now, it's gone. The official reason? To save money and let the private market solve housing. In reality, it leaves the poorest Argentines at the mercy of landlords. The story of Argentina's rental market is just as brutal. In 2020, the government passed a law called Ley de Alquileres 27.551 to protect tenants. It banned rent payments in US dollars and forced landlords to set prices in pesos, the currency workers actually earn. Inflation was high, but the law at least slowed down rent hikes. Milei repealed it in December 2023. The result? A surge in rental supply, celebrated by magazines like Newsweek, but at a terrible cost. Buenos Aires saw a 195% increase in available rental housing. But this skyrocketing supply meant landlords now charged rent in US dollars. When the peso loses value every week, rent explodes. Wages don't rise at the same speed, leaving tenants crushed. Fact checkers at Chiquedo found the ugly truth. In Buenos Aires, homelessness jumped by 23% in 1 year, from 3,286 people in November 2023 to 4,049 in November 2024. More apartments were technically available, but fewer people could afford them. Housing became a casino where only the landlord class wins. Wealth and education dreams cut short. Argentina should be rich. Its GDP was $631 billion in 2022, placing it right behind Brazil and Mexico in Latin America. It has massive lithium reserves, the very metal needed for electric car batteries. It has farmland that feeds the world, oil and gas under its soil, and a workforce that should be able to power industries. But the wealth does not reach the people. Inflation, which topped 211.4% in 2023, burns away wages. Prices in pesos rise faster than salaries, and every paycheck buys less food, less transport, less medicine. The education system tells another sad story. In the 1990s, Argentina expanded compulsory schooling, upgraded facilities, and tried to reduce inequality. Teachers, students, and parents believed education could be the engine of social mobility. But in crisis after crisis, schools became battlefields. Teachers went on strike because salaries were unpaid. Textbooks never arrived. Classrooms crumbled without maintenance. Now, under Milei's austerity, education faces another wave of cuts. Argentina has more than 655,000 teachers, but their jobs and salaries are at risk. The question is not just about pay, it's whether schools can even open on time. A country that once dreamed of leading Latin America in education now wonders if children will have classrooms at all. Poverty among kids is already at 2/3. Without schools, they inherit not just hunger, but hopelessness. The debt and spending trap. Argentina's story cannot be told without its endless debt. Since 1958, the country has signed 22 loan agreements with the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. Today, it owes the IMF more than $40 billion. That is on top of the $278 billion in total external debts as of March 2025. Argentina has become one of the most indebted nations in the world, borrowing just to repay old loans. This debt has a history of disaster. In 2001, Argentina suffered one of the worst economic collapses in modern history, defaulting on $100 billion. The peso lost almost all its value. Riots filled the streets. Since then, governments swing between printing money, cutting spending, and begging the IMF for another bailout. Milei is no different, except that he promised something new. He called it shock therapy. With his Chainsaw 2.0, Milei fired tens of thousands of public workers, froze pensions, cut subsidies, closed ministries, and lifted price controls. For a brief moment, he seemed to succeed. Inflation, which was 25.5% when he took office in December 2023, dropped to 1.9% by August 2025. The budget even showed a surplus. Milei celebrated as if the miracle had arrived. But reality returned quickly. Argentina's peso fell under heavy attack. Foreign reserves dropped to dangerous lows. The stock market plunged more than 30% in 2025. Poverty shot above 50%. Millions of Argentines saw no miracle at all. Only more hunger, more joblessness, more fear. Why shock therapy failed? Why did Milei's brutal measures fail? Because they targeted the wrong people. Cuts fell hardest on the poor, slashing social programs, killing housing projects, shrinking schools, and freezing pensions. For the rich, deregulation and dollar rents opened new profit streams. For the poor, it meant eviction, homelessness, and job losses. Even global experts warned this would happen. Anahai Weidenbrug from the International Institute for Sustainable Development explained, in Argentina, fiscal consolidation has historically fallen disproportionately on the most vulnerable. Jean-Paul Faguet, a political economist, said the welfare state is too big for the economy, but every attempt to shrink it throws the country back into chaos. In short, Argentina cannot balance its books without crushing its citizens, and it cannot save its citizens without defaulting on its books. That is the trap. The bigger picture. Argentina's wealth is real. Lithium, farmland, oil, all exist in abundance. But under capitalism, resources do not guarantee stability. Landlords, banks, and foreign investors profit first. The working majority pays the bill. Even when housing supply rises, it means nothing if rents are set in dollars. Even when inflation falls, it means nothing if poverty rises. Look at the numbers again. Poverty at 52.9%. Destitution at 18.1%. Homelessness up 23% in Buenos Aires. Inflation still among the highest in the world. A national debt of $278 billion. A government dismantling social programs faster than it can pay off the IMF. A future where schools may not even open. No future without change. So, why do Argentinians have no economic future? Because every path offered so far has failed. Printing money led to hyperinflation. IMF bailouts led to endless debt. Rent controls were repealed in the name of free markets, leaving tenants worse off. Milei's shock therapy reduced inflation for a year but drove half the country into poverty. Unless Argentina breaks the cycle, its future is locked in place. A land rich in resources but poor in people. A nation that exports food yet cannot feed its own children. A country where wealth exists but hope does not. The conclusion is harsh but clear. Under the current system, Argentinians are condemned to repeat this crisis again and again. Poverty grows, schools collapse, debt deepens, and the landlord class thrives. Unless a new model is built, one where housing, education, and stability are treated as rights, not commodities, the dream of a better Argentina will remain only that, a dream. The real question is, will the next generation accept the status quo, or will they demand a system that works for them? Your future is in your hands. Stay informed, stay prepared. Subscribe for more deep dives into finance and economics.